parents abandoned their baby because of his face. Years later, a famous doctor knocked on their door. In a small, unremarkable town, nestled in the heart of Middle America, a story of abandonment, resilience, and redemption was about to unfold. At the center of this tale was Ethan Foster, a man whose life had been shaped by a cruel twist of fate and the callousness of those who should have loved him unconditionally. Ethan was born with a severe facial deformity, a result of a rare genetic condition that affected the development of his skull and facial features. From the moment he entered the world, it was clear that his life would be far from ordinary. His parents, Robert and Linda Foster, were ill-prepared for the challenges that came with raising a child who looked so different from others. Robert, a successful real estate agent with political aspirations, saw Ethan as a threat to his carefully cultivated image. Linda, a former beauty queen who now organized charity galas, couldn't bear the pitying looks and whispered comments from her social circle. Instead of embracing their child and fighting for his future, they chose a path that would haunt them for years to come. When Ethan was just 5 years old, Robert and Linda made a decision that would alter the course of all their lives. Under the cover of night, they drove Ethan to a children's home 2 states away. With an envelope full of cash and a hastily scribbled note, they left their son behind, driving away from his cries without a backward glance. For Ethan, this act of abandonment was the beginning of a challenging journey. The children's home, while providing basic necessities, was a cold and often cruel environment for a child who already stood out so starkly. Other children teased him mercilessly, calling him names and excluding him from their games. The staff, overworked and underpaid, rarely had time to offer the extra care and attention Ethan so desperately needed. Despite the hardships, Ethan found solace in books and learning. He spent hours in the home's small library, devouring every book he could get his hands on. His keen intellect and insatiable curiosity became his armor against the world's cruelty. As he grew older, Ethan's academic achievements began to garner attention. By the time he was a teenager, he had earned a scholarship to a prestigious boarding school. At the boarding school, Ethan flourished. For the first time in his life, he was surrounded by people who valued his mind over his appearance. He made friends, excelled in his studies, and began to dream of a future where his facial differences wouldn't define him. Now, 20 years after being abandoned, Ethan Foster stood on the precipice of an extraordinary life. He had graduated at the top of his class from an Ivy League university, earned a PhD in biomedical engineering, and was on the verge of a breakthrough in reconstructive surgery techniques that could help people with facial differences like his own. Beneath his success, deep-seated pain and anger still simmered. The scars of abandonment never fully healed. As Ethan looked at himself in the mirror, tracing the contours of his face that had caused his parents to reject him, he made a decision. It was time to confront his past. It was time to pay his parents a visit. The decision to seek out his birth parents didn't come easily to Ethan. For years, he had pushed down the hurt and anger, focusing instead on building a life that defied the limitations others had tried to impose on him. But as he stood on the cusp of a major breakthrough in his career, he felt an overwhelming need for closure. It took Ethan less than a day to track down Robert and Linda Foster. Their lives were splashed across social media: charity galas, political fundraisers, vacation photos, and exotic locations. They had gone on to have 2 more children, both girls with picture-perfect faces and beaming smiles. Family portraits made Ethan's stomach churn. A crisp autumn morning, Ethan found himself standing outside a sprawling colonial-style home in an affluent suburb. The manicured lawn and luxury cars in the driveway spoke of a life of privilege, a life he could have been part of. Things had been different. Taking a deep breath, he walked up to the front door and rang the bell. The door opened, revealing a woman in her early 60s, impeccably dressed and coiffed. Linda Foster's eyes widened as she took in the sight of the man before. There was a flicker of recognition, quickly replaced by confusion and then fear. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Ethan met her gaze steadily. "Hello, Mother. It's been a long time." Color drained from Linda's face. She gripped the doorframe for support, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the wood. "Ethan?" she whispered, disbelief etched across her features. Before Ethan could respond, a male voice called from inside the house. "Who is it, dear?" Robert Foster appeared behind his wife, his expression changing from curiosity to shock as he saw Ethan. "I think we have a lot to talk about," Ethan said calmly, though his heart was racing. "May I come in?" Robert and Linda exchanged a panicked look, for reluctantly stepping aside to let Ethan enter. They led him to an opulent living room, the kind of room Ethan had only seen in magazines. Family photos adorned the walls and mantelpiece, a visual history of the life they had built without him. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room as they sat down. Robert and Linda perched on the edge of a leather sofa, while Ethan took an armchair opposite them. He could see the questions in their eyes, the fear of what his presence might mean for the carefully constructed life they had built. "Why are you here?" Robert finally asked, his tone a mixture of defensiveness and guilt. Ethan leaned forward, his gaze intense. "I think I deserve some answers, don't you? 20 years is a long time to wonder why your parents abandoned you because of something you had no control over." Linda flinched at his words. We thought we were doing what was best," she said weakly. "We weren't equipped to give you the care you needed." "Care?" Ethan repeated, a hint of bitterness creeping into his voice. "Or was it that you couldn't handle having a child who didn't fit into your perfect image?" Robert's jaw clenched. "You have to understand, we were young. We had our whole lives ahead of us. A child with your condition, it would have changed everything." "It did change everything," Ethan replied quietly. "Just not for you." The weight of those words hung heavy in the air. Robert and Linda seemed to shrink under Ethan's steady gaze, the facade of their perfect life crumbling in the face of their past actions. "We're sorry," Linda whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "We've regretted it every day since." Ethan stood up abruptly, walking over to the mantelpiece. He picked up a family photo. Robert, Linda, and their 2 daughters, all smiling brightly at some tropical resort. "Sorry enough to come looking for me? Sorry enough to tell your other children about their brother?" The silence that followed was answer enough. Ethan placed the photo back on the mantelpiece, turning to face his birth parents. "I didn't come here for apologies," he said. "I came here to show you what you threw away." With that, Ethan reached into his briefcase and pulled out a file. He handed it to Robert, who opened it with trembling hands. Inside were newspaper clippings, academic awards, and scientific journals, all detailing Ethan's achievements over the years. As Robert and Linda pored over the contents, their expressions morphed from shock to awe, deep, gut-wrenching regret. They saw the brilliant mind they had discarded, a success story they could have been part of, the son they had missed watching grow into an extraordinary man. "I'm on the verge of a breakthrough in reconstructive surgery," Ethan explained, his voice steady. "The work I'm doing could help thousands of people with facial differences. People like me, who deserve a chance at a normal life." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "I wanted you to know what became of the son you abandoned, and I wanted you to live with the knowledge of what you missed out on." As Ethan turned to leave, he saw the devastation on Robert and Linda's faces. They had gained the perfect life they thought they wanted, but in that moment they realized the tremendous cost of their decision all those years ago. The inciting incident of Ethan's visit had set in motion a chain of events that would force Robert and Linda to confront their past and reevaluate everything they thought they knew about family, love, and what truly matters in life. As Ethan's hand reached for the doorknob, ready to walk out of his birth parents' lives as abruptly as he had entered, a small voice stopped him in his tracks. "Mom, Dad, who's this?" Ethan turned to see a young girl, no more than 12, standing at the bottom of the staircase. Her curious eyes darted between Ethan and her visibly shaken parents. The resemblance between the girl and Linda was striking, the same delicate features and golden hair that Ethan had seen in the family photos. Linda's face paled even further. "Sophie, sweetie, go back upstairs. Mom and Dad are having an important conversation." But Sophie, with the boldness of youth, stepped further into the room. Her gaze fixed on Ethan, a mix of curiosity and something else, recognition perhaps. "You look like the man in the photo," she said softly. Ethan's brow furrowed in confusion. He looked to Robert and Linda, who seemed frozen in place, terror etched across their features. "What photo, Sophie?" Ethan asked gently, kneeling down to the girl's eye level. Sophie hesitated, glancing at her parents, or continuing. "The one in Dad's study. The baby with the funny face. Dad looks at it sometimes when he thinks no one's watching. He gets really sad." The revelation hit Ethan like a physical blow. He stood up slowly, turning to face Robert and Linda. "You kept a photo of me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Robert, his composure finally cracking, nodded. We couldn't. We tried to forget, but you couldn't," Ethan finished for him. The anger that had been fueling him began to ebb, replaced by a complex mix of emotions he couldn't quite name. Linda, tears now flowing freely, approached Sophie. "Sweetheart, there's something we need to tell you. Something we should have told you and your sister a long time ago." She took a deep breath, looking to Robert for support. He nodded, moving to stand beside her. "Sophie," Linda began, her voice shaky but determined. "This man, Ethan, he's your brother." Sophie's eyes widened, darting between Ethan and her parents. "My brother? But you said I only had a sister." "We made a terrible mistake a long time ago," Robert explained, his voice thick with emotion. "We thought we were doing the right thing, but we were wrong. So very wrong." As the truth unfolded, Ethan found himself in uncharted emotional territory. The narrative he had constructed over the years, of unfeeling parents who had discarded him without a second thought, was crumbling. In its place, a more complex picture emerged. Flawed, frightened young parents who had made a devastating choice, one that had haunted them ever since. Sophie, displaying wisdom beyond her years, approached Ethan. She studied his face intently, taking in the features that had once caused her parents to make an unthinkable decision. Then, to everyone's surprise, she reached out and took Ethan's hand. "I've always wanted a brother," she said simply. The gesture, so pure and accepting, broke something open in Ethan. Tears he had held back for years began to fall. Robert and Linda, watching the scene unfold, found themselves overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they had lost, and what they might, incredibly, a chance to regain. As the initial shock wore off, the family moved to the living room where the conversation continued. Sophie, unencumbered by the weight of the past, asked Ethan question after question about his life, his work, his interests. Her innocence and genuine curiosity served as a bridge, allowing Ethan and his parents to begin navigating the vast gulf between them. Throughout the discussion, more truths came to light. Robert and Linda spoke of years of regret, of sleepless nights wondering about the son they had given up. They shared how they had tried to make amends by donating to charities for children with facial differences, always with Ethan in mind. For Ethan, this revelation was transformative. The narrative of his life, which had been defined by abandonment and rejection, was being rewritten before his eyes. The parents he had imagined as heartless and uncaring were revealed to be deeply flawed but ultimately human, carrying the weight of their mistake for 2 decades. As the day wore on, it became clear to all that this unexpected reunion was not an ending, but a beginning. The road ahead would be long and undoubtedly challenging, but for the first time in 20 years, there was hope for healing, understanding, and perhaps, in time, forgiveness. In the days following his shocking visit to the foster home, Ethan found himself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. The anger and resentment that had fueled him for so long were still present, but they were now tempered by a newfound understanding of the complexity of his parents' actions and the weight of their regret. As he threw himself back into his work at the research lab, Ethan couldn't shake the image of Sophie's accepting smile or the sound of Linda's tearful apologies. The wall he had built around his heart over the years had begun to crack, and he wasn't sure whether to reinforce it or let it crumble entirely. A week after the visit, Ethan received an email from Robert. It was a tentative olive branch, expressing gratitude for Ethan's visit and a desire to make amends. Attached to the email was a scanned copy of the baby photo Sophie had mentioned, a snapshot of Ethan as an infant, his face marked by the genetic condition that had shaped his life. Staring at the image of his younger self, Ethan made a decision that would alter the course of his life once again. He would give his birth parents a chance to be part of his life, not for their sake, for his own. It was time to confront the pain of his past head-on and see where this new chapter might lead. Ethan's response to Robert's email was cautious but open. He agreed to meet with his parents again, this time on neutral ground, a quiet cafe in the city where Ethan lived and worked. He also made it clear that while he was willing to explore a relationship, it would be on his terms and at his pace. The consequences of this decision rippled through Ethan's life immediately. His colleagues at the lab noticed a change in his demeanor, a softening of the hard edges he had cultivated over the years. Dr. Amelia Chen, Ethan's mentor and the lead researcher on their reconstructive surgery project, pulled him aside one day after a particularly productive brainstorming session. "You seem different lately, Ethan," she observed, her keen eyes studying his face. "More open, somehow. Did something happen?" Ethan hesitated for a moment before sharing the broad strokes of his recent experiences. Dr. Chen listened intently, her expression a mix of concern and admiration. "Ethan," she said when he had finished, "I've always believed that our personal experiences shape our work in profound ways. This journey you're on could bring a whole new dimension to our research." Her words stuck with Ethan, prompting him to reconsider the potential impact of his personal story on his professional pursuits. He began to see how his unique perspective, as both a person with a facial difference and someone working to address such differences, could be invaluable to their research. The meeting with Robert and Linda at the cafe was tense but productive. Ethan set clear boundaries and expectations, making it clear that trust would need to be rebuilt slowly. To his surprise, his parents readily agreed, expressing their willingness to do whatever it took to be part of his life. As the weeks passed, Ethan cautiously allowed Robert and Linda to learn more about his life and work. He introduced them to Dr. Chen and gave them a tour of the lab, explaining in layman's terms the groundbreaking work they were doing. The impact of this decision was profound. Robert and Linda, seeing firsthand the importance of Ethan's work, were overcome with a mixture of pride and regret. Their son, whom they had abandoned out of fear and selfishness, was now at the forefront of medical research that could help countless others. This realization spurred them into action. Robert, with his extensive network of business contacts, began to leverage his connections to secure additional funding for Ethan's research. Linda, drawing on her experience organizing charity events, started planning a gala to raise awareness and support for facial difference research. Ethan's initial reaction to these efforts was one of skepticism. Part of him wondered if this was just another attempt by his parents to assuage their guilt. However, as he watched them pour genuine effort and passion into supporting his work, he began to see it as a sincere attempt at redemption. The consequences of Ethan's decision to allow his parents back into his life extended beyond his professional sphere. His relationships with others began to change as well. He found himself opening up more to his colleagues, sharing personal stories he had always kept hidden. This new vulnerability fostered deeper connections and a more collaborative work environment. Perhaps the most significant change came in Ethan's personal life. For years, he had kept romantic relationships at arm's length, fear of rejection always lurking beneath the surface. But as he worked through his feelings about his parents and his past, he found the courage to pursue a relationship with Samantha, fellow researcher he had admired from afar. However, not all consequences of Ethan's decision were positive. As news of his reconnection with his birth parents spread through his extended family and social circle, he faced difficult questions and judgments. Some couldn't understand how he could forgive such a profound betrayal. Others accused him of being naive or setting himself up for more hurt. These conflicting reactions forced Ethan to confront his own complex feelings about the situation. There were days when doubt crept in, when the pain of his childhood felt too raw to move past. But there were also moments of unexpected joy, like when Sophie, his younger sister, called him excitedly to share a good grade on a science project, proudly declaring that she wanted to be smart like her big brother. As the date of the charity gala approached, Ethan found himself at a crossroads. The event would make his story public, potentially opening old wounds, but also providing a platform to raise awareness for an issue close to his heart. The decision to participate would mean fully embracing his new relationship with his parents and exposing himself to public scrutiny. After much soul-searching and discussions with Dr. Chen, Samantha, and even his younger sisters, Ethan made his choice. He would not only attend the gala but would be a keynote speaker, sharing his personal story alongside presentations about the groundbreaking research his team was conducting. The night of the gala arrived, and Ethan found himself standing backstage, heart pounding. As he peered out at the gathered crowd, he saw faces both familiar and strange. His parents sat in the front row, anxiety and hope mingling on their faces. Dr. Chen and his colleagues from the lab were scattered throughout the audience. And there, in the back, he spotted a group of people he had invited personally. Other adults who had grown up with facial differences, some of whom might benefit from his team's research. As Ethan stepped up to the microphone, he took a deep breath. The journey that had brought him to this moment had been long and painful, filled with unexpected twists and turns. But as he began to speak, sharing his story of abandonment, resilience, and eventual reconciliation, he realized that every step of that journey had led him exactly where he needed to be. The consequences of Ethan's decision to confront his past and open himself up to a relationship with his parents had set in motion a chain of events that would not only change his life, but potentially improve the lives of countless others. As he looked out at the rapt audience, Ethan felt a sense of purpose and belonging that he had never experienced before. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in his life, Ethan felt truly whole. While Ethan's journey of reconciliation with his parents took center stage, a secondary plot was unfolding that would add depth and complexity to the story. This subplot revolved around Sophie, Ethan's younger sister, who had been the catalyst for the family's reunion. In the months following Ethan's initial visit, Sophie's curiosity about her long-lost brother had blossomed into a full-fledged admiration. She peppered her parents with questions about Ethan's childhood, his condition, and why they had made the decision to give him up. Robert and Linda, committed to honesty in this new chapter of their lives, answered as truthfully as they could, often with tears in their eyes. Sophie's interest in Ethan's story sparked a passion for science and medicine that her parents had never seen before. Her school projects began to focus on genetics and bioengineering, and she spent hours researching facial differences and the latest advancements in reconstructive surgery. One day, Sophie approached her parents with a determined look in her eye. "I want to volunteer at a camp for kids with facial differences," she announced. "I want to understand what Ethan went through, and maybe help other kids like him." Robert and Linda were taken aback by their daughter's request. Forced them to confront the ripple effects of their past decision on their entire family. After some discussion, they agreed to support Sophie's wish, seeing it as an opportunity for growth and understanding. As Sophie immersed herself in volunteer work, she began to see the world through a different lens. She witnessed firsthand the challenges faced by children with facial differences. Stares, the whispers, the exclusion, but she also saw their resilience, their joy, and their capacity for love and friendship. Sophie's experiences at the camp had a profound effect on her. She started advocating for inclusivity and acceptance at her school, even giving a presentation about facial differences to her classmates. Her passion and empathy inspired those around her, creating a ripple effect of awareness and compassion. Meanwhile, Ethan found himself drawn into Sophie's journey. He began to see his little sister as a bridge between his past and present, a symbol of hope for a more accepting future. He supported her volunteer efforts, offering insights from his own experiences and connecting her with resources from his professional network. As Sophie's understanding of facial differences grew, so did her relationship with Ethan. Their bond strengthened, transcending the years of separation and the circumstances of Ethan's absence. Sophie became Ethan's fiercest advocate within the family, often mediating tense moments between Ethan and their parents. One evening, as the family gathered for dinner, a new tradition they had started, Sophie made an announcement that stunned everyone at the table. "I've decided what I want to do when I grow up," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "I want to be a craniofacial surgeon. I want to help kids like Ethan." The room fell silent. Ethan felt a lump form in his throat, overwhelmed by his sister's declaration. Robert and Linda exchanged a look of surprise and pride. In that moment, they realized that their past mistake had not only shaped Ethan's life, but had set Sophie on a path they could never have anticipated. "Are you sure, sweetheart?" Linda asked gently. "That's a very challenging career." Sophie nodded firmly. "I know it won't be easy, but Ethan's doing important work, and I want to do my part too. I want to make a difference." Ethan reached across the table and squeezed Sophie's hand. "You already are making a difference, Sophie," he said softly, "more than you know." This development added a new dimension to the family's journey of healing and reconciliation. Sophie's dedication to understanding and addressing facial differences became a unifying force, bringing the family together in a shared mission of awareness and acceptance. As news of Sophie's volunteer work and advocacy spread, she began to receive attention from local media. Her story, of a young girl inspired by her long-lost brother to champion a cause, resonated with many. It brought further attention to Ethan's research and the broader issues faced by individuals with facial differences. The secondary plot of Sophie's journey not only enriched the main story but also highlighted the far-reaching consequences of past actions and the power of empathy and understanding to create positive change. It underscored the theme that even from painful beginnings, something beautiful and transformative could emerge. The evolving relationships within the foster family became the heart of the story, with each connection facing its own unique challenges and opportunities for growth. At the center of this web of relationships was Ethan, navigating the complex emotions of reconnecting with his birth family while maintaining his own sense of identity and purpose. Ethan's relationship with his parents, Robert and Linda, was a delicate dance of tentative steps forward and occasional steps back. There were moments of warmth and connection, like when Robert attended one of Ethan's lectures and beamed with pride from the audience, or when Linda helped Ethan pick out a suit for an important presentation. But there were also times of tension and pain, when old wounds would resurface unexpectedly. One particularly poignant moment came during a family dinner, when the topic of Ethan's childhood surgeries came up. As Ethan recounted the loneliness and fear he had experienced, Linda broke down in tears. "We should have been there," she sobbed. "We should have held your hand and told you everything would be okay." Ethan, surprising even himself, reached out to comfort his mother. "You're here now," he said softly. "It's not the same, but it's something." This moment marked a turning point in their relationship. While it didn't erase the past, it opened the door to a new level of understanding and forgiveness. Ethan's relationship with his sisters, Sophie and Emma, developed in different ways. With Sophie, there was an immediate connection, fueled by her curiosity and admiration. Emma, who was away at college, was more hesitant. She had grown up with the vague knowledge of a brother who had been given up for adoption, but facing the reality of Ethan's presence in their lives was challenging for her. Ethan made a point of reaching out to Emma, sending her emails about his work and asking about her studies. Slowly, Emma began to open up, sharing her own struggles with feeling like she had to be perfect to make up for the brother her parents had given away. During one of Emma's visits home, she and Ethan had a heart-to-heart conversation that brought them closer. Emma confessed her feelings of guilt and inadequacy, and Ethan shared his own journey of self-acceptance. By the end of the conversation, they had formed a bond based on mutual understanding and shared experiences. Perhaps the most unexpected relationship development was between Ethan and his colleague Samantha. As they worked closely together on the research project, their professional admiration blossomed into a deeper connection. Samantha's acceptance of Ethan, facial difference and all, helped him open his heart in ways he never thought possible. Their first date was a mix of nerves and excitement. As they sat across from each other at a cozy restaurant, Ethan found himself sharing stories about his childhood and his recent family reunion. Samantha listened with empathy and understanding, sharing her own experiences of feeling different as a woman in a male-dominated field. As their relationship deepened, Samantha became an integral part of Ethan's support system. She attended family gatherings, offering a steady presence during tense moments. Her outsider's perspective often helped Ethan see his family dynamics in a new light. One evening, as Ethan and Samantha were walking hand in hand through a park, Ethan stopped suddenly. "You know," he said, looking into Samantha's eyes, "I never thought I'd have this. Family, a career I'm passionate about, someone who loves me for who I am. For the longest time, I thought my face would always be a barrier." Samantha squeezed his hand. "Your face is part of who you are, Ethan, and who you are is pretty amazing." This moment of vulnerability and acceptance marked a new chapter in their relationship, one built on mutual respect, understanding, and love. As the foster family dynamics continued to evolve, they decided to start seeing a family therapist to help navigate the complex emotions and challenges they faced. These sessions became a safe space for everyone to express their feelings and work through lingering resentments and fears. During one particularly intense session, Robert finally opened up about the depth of his regret. "I was so afraid of what people would think," he admitted, his voice choked with emotion. "I was more concerned about my image than my own child. I'll never forgive myself." Ethan, moved by his father's honesty, found himself offering words of comfort. "We can't change the past, Dad, but we're here now, trying to make it right. That counts for something." These therapy sessions, while often emotionally draining, served to strengthen the bonds between family members. They learned to communicate more effectively, to express their needs and boundaries, and to support each other through the ongoing process of healing. As the months passed, the foster family settled into a new normal. Family dinners became a regular occurrence, filled with lively discussions about Ethan's research, Sophie's volunteer work, and Emma's college adventures. There were still moments of tension and sadness, but they were increasingly outnumbered by moments of joy and connection. Through it all, Ethan found himself at the center of a growing network of relationships, each one helping to heal old wounds and create new, positive memories. The journey was far from over, but with each passing day, the bonds of family and love grew stronger, weaving a tapestry of connection could weather any storm. The climactic event of the story unfolded at the annual conference for the American Society of Craniofacial Surgery, where Ethan and his team were slated to present their groundbreaking research. This conference represented the culmination of years of work and held the potential to change the lives of countless individuals with facial differences. The significance of the event was not lost on the Foster family. Robert, Linda, Sophie, and Emma had all flown in to support Ethan, marking the first time the entire family would be together in a public setting. The atmosphere was charged with a mixture of excitement and nervous energy. As Ethan prepared backstage for his presentation, he felt the weight of the moment bearing down on him. This wasn't just about his research anymore. It was about validating his life's journey and proving that the challenges he had faced had led to something meaningful. Just as Ethan was about to step onto the stage, he felt a hand on his shoulder. Turning, he saw his entire family standing there, including Samantha. The sight of them all together, united in their support, nearly overwhelmed him. "We're so proud of you, son," Robert said, his voice thick with emotion. Linda nodded, tears in her eyes. "You've overcome so much. You're changing lives." Sophie gave him a thumbs up, while Emma squeezed his hand. Samantha stepped forward and straightened his tie. "You've got this," she whispered, giving him a quick kiss. Drawing strength from their presence, Ethan took a deep breath and walked onto the stage. The auditorium fell silent as he approached the podium. The faces of hundreds of medical professionals turned expectantly toward him. Ethan began his presentation, outlining the innovative techniques his team had developed. As he spoke, he could see the growing excitement in the audience. Colleagues he respected were nodding appreciatively, scribbling notes furiously. Halfway through the presentation, Ethan deviated from his prepared speech. "Before I continue," he said, his voice steady, "I want to share a personal story that drives this research." A hush fell over the room as Ethan recounted his own journey, the abandonment, the struggles, and the eventual reconciliation with his family. He spoke of the pain of feeling different, the countless surgeries, and the determination that had led him to this very stage. Every child born with a facial difference deserves the chance to be seen for who they truly are, Ethan declared, his voice ringing out clear and strong. Our work isn't just about changing faces. It's about changing lives, changing perceptions, and ultimately, changing the world. As Ethan concluded his presentation, the auditorium erupted in applause. Colleagues rose to their feet, giving him a standing ovation. In the front row, Ethan could see his family, all of them openly weeping and clapping. The question and answer session that followed was electric. Ethan fielded inquiries with confidence, passion for the subject evident in every response. It was clear to everyone in the room that they were witnessing a pivotal moment in the field of craniofacial surgery. As the session came to a close, the head of the American Society of Craniofacial Surgery approached the podium. "Dr. Foster," he said, his voice booming through the speakers, "on behalf of the Society, I want to thank you for your groundbreaking work. Your research has the potential to revolutionize our field and improve countless lives. We would like to offer you a grant to further your studies and implement your techniques in hospitals across the country." The announcement was met with another round of thunderous applause. Ethan stood there, momentarily stunned by the magnitude of what had just happened. His years of hard work, fueled by his personal experiences, culminated in this moment of professional triumph. As Ethan made his way off the stage, he was engulfed in a sea of congratulations from colleagues and attendees. But his eyes sought out only one group, his family. He found them waiting at the edge of the crowd, their faces beaming with pride and joy. Robert was the first to reach him, pulling Ethan into a tight embrace. "Son, I don't have the words," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "What you've accomplished, what you've overcome, I am in awe of you." Linda was next, tears streaming down her face as she hugged Ethan. "You did it, sweetheart. You turned your pain into purpose. I'm so sorry we weren't there for you before, but I promise we'll be here for every moment going forward." Sophie and Emma sandwiched Ethan in a group hug, chattering excitedly about how amazing his presentation was. Samantha stood nearby, her eyes shining with pride and love. As the family celebrated together, a reporter from a major medical journal approached them. "Dr. Foster, would you mind if I asked you a few questions? Your story is remarkable, and I think it could inspire so many people." Ethan looked at his family, silently asking for their approval. They nodded encouragingly. "Of course," Ethan replied to the reporter, "but I'd like my family to be part of this interview. They're an integral part of my journey." What followed was a deeply moving interview where Ethan and his family openly discussed their past, their process of reconciliation, and their hopes for the future. They spoke about the importance of acceptance, the power of forgiveness, and the potential for growth, even in the face of profound challenges. As the interview concluded, the reporter turned to Robert and Linda. "As parents who once made the difficult decision to give up your child due to his facial difference, what would you say to other parents facing similar challenges today?" Robert and Linda exchanged a look, for Linda answered, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "We would tell them that love is stronger than fear, that the challenges you face are nothing compared to the joy and pride you'll feel watching your child grow and thrive. We made a terrible mistake, one we'll regret for the rest of our lives. But Ethan's forgiveness and his incredible achievements have shown us the true meaning of unconditional love and resilience." Robert nodded in agreement. "We would tell them that every child, regardless of appearance, has infinite potential. Our son has changed not just our lives, but potentially the lives of so many others. We missed out on so much, but we're grateful for the second chance we've been given." Ethan, listening to his parents' words, felt a wave of emotion wash over him. The journey that had brought them to this point had been long and often painful, but in this moment, he felt a sense of peace and completeness he had never experienced before. As the family left the conference hall together, Ethan realized that his greatest achievement wasn't just his professional success, but the healing and reconciliation that had taken place. He had not only revolutionized the field of craniofacial surgery, but had also transformed his own life and the lives of his family members. The climactic event of the conference had become a turning point, not just in Ethan's career, but in the foster family's journey of healing and redemption. It marked the moment when the past was truly put to rest, and a new chapter, full of hope and possibility, began. In the wake of the conference's success and the emotional family interview, fosters found themselves thrust into the public eye. Ethan's story of abandonment, perseverance, and reconciliation had struck a chord with people far beyond the medical community. Interview requests poured in, and social media buzzed with discussions about facial differences, family dynamics, and the power of forgiveness. While the attention brought increased funding and awareness to Ethan's research, it also dredged up old wounds and created new tensions within the family. The heightened scrutiny forced them to confront aspects of their shared history that they had yet to fully resolve. One particularly challenging moment came when a popular talk show invited the entire foster family to appear as guests. The show's producers promised a platform to share their story and promote acceptance for individuals with facial differences. However, they also hinted at delving into the painful details of Ethan's abandonment and the years of separation. The family gathered at Robert and Linda's house to discuss whether they should accept the invitation. The atmosphere was tense as they weighed the potential benefits against the risks of further public exposure. "I think we should do it," Ethan said, breaking the silence. "It's an opportunity to reach a wider audience, to challenge perceptions about facial differences." Robert shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I understand that, son, but are we ready to have our darkest moment broadcast to millions? The whole world will know what we did." "The whole world already knows, Dad," Emma interjected. "Ethan's story is out there. Maybe this is a chance to show how people can change, how families can heal." Linda, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "I'm willing to do it if everyone else is." "But Ethan, honey, you have to know that it might bring up a lot of painful memories. Are you sure you're prepared for that?" Ethan took a deep breath, considering his mother's words. "I won't pretend it'll be easy," he admitted, "but I think it's important, not just for us, for other families who might be going through something similar." After much discussion, the family agreed to appear on the show, but with conditions. They would have approval over the questions asked, and the focus would be on their journey of reconciliation rather than sensationalizing the past. The day of the talk show arrived, and the foster family found themselves seated on a plush couch under bright studio lights. The host, a compassionate woman named Diane, began by asking Ethan about his research and the recent conference. But soon, the conversation turned to the family's painful history. "Ethan," Diane said gently, "can you take us back to the moment you decided to contact your birth parents? What was going through your mind?" Ethan paused, gathering his thoughts. "I was angry," he admitted. "For years I'd carried this weight of rejection, this belief that I wasn't worthy of love because of how I looked. When I reached out, part of me wanted to show them what they'd thrown away, to make them regret their decision." Robert and Linda visibly flinched at Ethan's words, the pain evident on their faces. "Robert, Linda," Diane turned to them. "How did you feel when Ethan contacted you?" Linda took Robert's hand before answering. "We were terrified," she said, her voice quavering. "Terrified and ashamed. We knew we had done something unforgivable, and we didn't know if we deserved a second chance." "But you took that chance," Diane prompted. "You opened your door to Ethan. Why?" Robert leaned forward, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Because it was a miracle. A miracle we didn't deserve, but one we desperately wanted. The moment we saw Ethan standing there, we knew we had made the biggest mistake of our lives, and we would spend the rest of our days trying to make it right if he'd let us." As the interview continued, the family delved into the challenges they faced in rebuilding their relationship. They spoke honestly about the anger, guilt, the moments of doubt, but they also shared stories of small breakthroughs, of learning to trust and love each other. Sophie talked about her volunteer work and how Ethan had inspired her career aspirations. Emma shared her initial reservations and how she had come to embrace Ethan as her brother. Samantha spoke about falling in love with Ethan and how his family's journey had touched her life. Throughout the interview, Ethan found himself experiencing a range of emotions. There was still pain in revisiting the past, but also a surprising sense of catharsis in sharing their story so openly. He saw his parents in a new light as they vulnerably admitted their faults and expressed their deep remorse. As the interview neared its end, Diane asked the question that had been on everyone's mind. "Ethan, have you forgiven your parents?" A hush fell over the studio. Robert and Linda held their breath, their hands clasped tightly together. Ethan took a moment before answering, his gaze moving from his parents to his sisters to Samantha and finally back to Diane. "Forgiveness is a journey," he said slowly. "It's not a single moment, but a process that we go through every day. There are still times when the pain of the past feels fresh, when I struggle with anger or resentment. But there are also moments of incredible joy and connection that I never thought I'd experience with my family." Ethan turned to look directly at his parents. "So yes, I have forgiven them. Not because what they did was okay, but because holding on to that anger was hurting me more than it was hurting them. Forgiveness has allowed us to build something new, something beautiful from the ashes of our past." As Ethan finished speaking, Linda let out a soft sob. Robert wrapped an arm around her shoulders, his own eyes brimming with tears. Sophie and Emma reached out to hold Ethan's hands, forming a connected chain of support. The interview ended with Diane thanking the Foster family for their honesty and courage. As the cameras stopped rolling, the family embraced, their shared emotion too powerful for words. While the talk show appearance had been challenging, it also served as a cathartic experience for the Fosters. By confronting their past so publicly, they had taken a significant step in their healing process. The conflict that had defined their relationship for so long was not entirely resolved, but it had evolved into something more manageable, something that brought them together rather than drove them apart. As they left the studio, there was a sense that they had crossed an important threshold. The road ahead would still have its bumps, but they would face them together, as a family united by love, understanding, and the power of forgiveness. The talk show appearance marked a significant turning point for the Foster family. The public airing of their story, while emotionally taxing, had cleared the air in ways they hadn't anticipated. It was as if by sharing their journey with the world, they had finally exorcised the last of the ghosts that had haunted them. In the days following the interview, the family found themselves inundated with messages from viewers. Many were from individuals with facial differences who felt seen and understood for the first time. Others came from families who had faced similar challenges, thanking the Fosters for their honesty and courage. This outpouring of support and connection sparked a new idea in Ethan's mind. During a family dinner, he shared his vision with them. "I've been thinking," he began, his eyes alight with enthusiasm. "What if we could create a foundation, one that supports families affected by facial differences? Not just medically, but emotionally and socially too." The family listened intently as Ethan outlined his plan. The foundation would provide resources for parents of children with facial differences, fund research into new treatments, and work to promote acceptance and understanding in society at large. "We could make a real difference," Ethan concluded. "Turn our experience into something positive for others." Robert was the first to respond. "Son, I think that's a wonderful idea, and if you'll have me, I'd like to help. My business experience could be useful in setting up and running a foundation." Linda nodded eagerly. "I could coordinate with hospitals and support groups, maybe organize events to bring families together." Sophie's eyes were wide with excitement. "I could start a youth program, help kids with facial differences connect with each other and build confidence." Emma, who had been quiet, spoke up. "I've been thinking about changing my major to psychology. Maybe I could help develop counseling programs for the foundation." Samantha squeezed Ethan's hand. "And I'll be right there with you, every step of the way." As the family enthusiastically discussed the possibilities, Ethan felt a warmth spreading through his chest. This was more than he could have ever hoped for. Not just acceptance from his family, but a shared purpose that could heal not only their wounds, but help others as well. Over the next few months, the Foster Family Foundation for Facial Differences began to take shape. Ethan's medical expertise, Robert's business acumen, Linda's organizational skills and the passion of the entire family drove the project forward at an impressive pace. The foundation quickly gained attention and support. Ethan's colleagues in the medical community offered their services, while Robert's business contacts provided financial backing. Linda's charm and Sophie's youthful energy made their events a success, drawing in families and supporters from across the country. For Ethan, this new direction was transformative. His work was no longer just about medical advancements. It was about changing lives in a holistic way. He found himself energized by the challenge, driven by the opportunity to turn his painful past into a source of hope for others. Foster family had not just reconciled, they had found a shared mission that gave their relationship new depth and meaning. Their journey had come full circle, from a family torn apart by fear and prejudice to one united in their commitment to fostering acceptance and support for those facing similar challenges. As the foundation grew, so did the sense of healing within the family. They were no longer defined by the mistakes of the past, but by their dedication to creating a better future for others. It was a new chapter, not just for the Fosters, but for every life they would touch through their work. As the Foster Family Foundation for Facial Differences flourished, each member of the family found themselves on a profound journey of personal growth and reflection. Ethan, once driven by a need to prove his worth and a desire for revenge, now found himself motivated by a deeper sense of purpose. His work with the foundation allowed him to transform his past pain into a force for positive change. He noticed a shift in his perspective, where once he saw his facial difference as a burden, he now recognized it as a unique part of his identity that enabled him to connect with, help others in meaningful ways. One evening, as Ethan was preparing for a foundation event, caught his reflection in the mirror. For the first time in his life, he truly smiled at his image, appreciating every line and contour of his face. It was a moment of self-acceptance that had been years in the making. Robert's transformation was equally significant. The man who had once abandoned his son out of fear and shame now devoted himself tirelessly to supporting individuals with facial differences and their families. He often reflected on the irony of his journey, how his greatest mistake had led him to his most fulfilling work. During a foundation board meeting, Robert shared a poignant thought with the team. "You know," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I used to think success was about wealth and status. But true success is about the lives you touch, positive change you create. I've never felt more successful than I do now, working alongside my family to make a difference." Linda's growth manifested in her deepening empathy and her ability to connect with other parents facing similar challenges. She became a pillar of support for mothers and fathers grappling with the same fears and uncertainties she had once faced. At a support group meeting, Linda shared her story with a group of anxious parents. "I made a terrible mistake," she admitted, "but it taught me that love is stronger than fear. Your children need your acceptance and support more than anything else in this world." Sophie's passion for the cause continued to grow. Her experiences volunteering and working with the foundation shaped her worldview and career aspirations. As she prepared for college, she decided to pursue a degree in biomedical engineering, inspired by Ethan's work and driven by a desire to contribute to advancements in craniofacial treatment. During a career day presentation at her high school, Sophie spoke confidently about her goals. "My brother showed me that our challenges can become our greatest strength," she told her classmate. "I want to use my skills to ensure that no one feels limited by their appearance." Emma, who had initially struggled with Ethan's reintegration into the family, found herself growing in unexpected ways. Her decision to study psychology was born out of a desire to understand her own complex emotions about her family's history. As she delved into her studies, she gained insights that helped her process her feelings and strengthen her relationships with her sibling. During a family therapy session, Emma made a breakthrough. "I realized," she said, tears in her eyes, "that I've been carrying this guilt, feeling like I had to be perfect to make up for losing Ethan. But now, I understand that it's okay to be imperfect. Our family's story isn't about perfection. It's about growth and love." Samantha, while not a foster by blood, found herself deeply impacted by her involvement, family, and the foundation. Her relationship with Ethan deepened as she witnessed his journey of healing and self-acceptance. She found herself becoming an advocate for inclusivity in her own right, challenging perceptions in her professional and personal circles. During a date night with Ethan, Samantha reflected on their journey. "You know," she said, intertwining her fingers with his, "when we first met, I was drawn to your brilliance as a researcher. But seeing you embrace your story, watching you turn pain into purpose, that's when I fell in love with you, Ethan." As the foundation's influence grew, the foster family found themselves frequently in the public eye. They were invited to speak at conferences, featured in documentaries, and consulted on policies related to medical care and social support for individuals with facial differences. This visibility brought its own challenges, but also opportunities for further growth and reflection. Ethan, in particular, had to navigate the complex emotions came with being viewed as an inspiration. After giving a keynote speech at a major medical conference, confided in his family. "Sometimes I feel like an imposter," he admitted. "People call me brave and strong, but there are still days when I struggle with insecurity." Robert put a comforting hand on his son's shoulder. "That's what makes you real, Ethan. Your willingness to be vulnerable, to share your struggles along with your triumphs, that's what truly inspires people." Linda nodded in agreement. "We all have our battles, sweetheart. Courage is in continuing to fight them and in helping others fight theirs." This moment of openness brought the family even closer, reinforcing the bonds that had been forged through their shared experiences. As the years passed, the Fosters' journey of growth and reflection continued. They celebrated milestones, both personal and professional. Sophie's college graduation, Emma's first published research paper, the Foundation's expansion to international chapters. Through it all, they remained committed to their mission of support and advocacy. One evening, as the family gathered for their now traditional Sunday dinner, Ethan looked around the table at the faces of his loved one. He saw the lines of laughter around his mother's eyes, the proud set of his father's shoulders, passionate gleam in Sophie's gaze, quiet confidence in Emma's demeanor, and the loving warmth in Samantha's smile. In that moment, Ethan realized how far they had all come. The angry, hurt young man who had shown up on his parents' doorstep years ago seemed like a distant memory. In his place was a man surrounded by love, driven by purpose, and at peace with himself. "You know," Ethan said, raising his glass in a toast, "someone once told me that our scars show where we've been. They don't have to dictate where we're going. I think our family is living proof of that." The family raised their glasses in response, each member reflecting on their individual journeys and the collective path they had traveled together. They had grown not despite their challenges, but because of them, each emerging stronger, more compassionate, and more united than they could have ever imagined. As they clinked glasses, there was a shared understanding that their growth was not an endpoint, but an ongoing process. They would continue to face challenges, to learn, to evolve. But now they would do so together, bound by a love that had been tested by fire and emerged unbreakable. As the Foster family's story spread, it became a beacon of hope for many, reinforcing themes of resilience, forgiveness, and the transformative power of love and acceptance. The foundation they had built became a lasting legacy, touching countless lives. Families affected by facial differences found support and community. Medical professionals gained new perspectives on patient care. Society at large was challenged to reconsider its perceptions of beauty and worth. Ethan's groundbreaking research, fueled by his personal experiences, continued to advance the field of craniofacial surgery. But beyond the medical achievements, it was the human impact that resonated most deeply. Children with facial differences, inspired by Ethan's story, grew up with a stronger sense of self-worth and possibility. Robert and Linda, once burdened by the weight of their past mistake, found redemption in their tireless work for the foundation. Their journey became a powerful testament to the possibility of change and the healing nature of making amends. Sophie and Emma, shaped by their family's experiences, grew into strong, empathetic adults, each making their mark on the world in their own way. Their bond with Ethan served as a reminder that family is defined by love and choice, not merely by blood or shared history. Samantha, by standing by Ethan and embracing his family's mission, exemplified the power of acceptance and unconditional love. The Foster family's story reinforced the idea that our greatest challenges can become our greatest strength. It showed that healing is possible, even from the deepest wounds, and that forgiveness has the power to transform not only individuals but entire communities. As Ethan often said in his speeches, our scars, visible or invisible, tell the story of where we've been, but it's our choices, our actions, and the love we share that determine where we're going. The Fosters' journey from abandonment to reconciliation, from pain to purpose, stood as a powerful reminder that every person has inherent worth, that every face tells a unique story, and that with understanding, compassion, and love, even the deepest divides can be bridged. Their story didn't end with neat resolutions and happily ever afters. Instead, it continued to unfold, testament to the ongoing nature of growth, healing, and the enduring power of family love.